John, why is it important for mission for us to know our communities?
Well, partially I'm going to speak from experience. In my recruitment as an assistant minister in the Church of Scotland, I was given the remit of developing mission within the local city context. And the church had its own mission plan, it had its own vision statement, it had done so much work, but it hadn't recognised that the city centre was a community related to a different parish. And because of that, immediately the whole vision statement, the whole mission and everything else was put on hold to some extent. So I think there's a real error in not knowing our local community, in not knowing what's outside of our front door in terms of our local church. Secondly, I think it's really important to know the local community in a deep way, and I mean deep listening, because that way you'll know the dreams of the local community, you'll know their visions, you'll know their expectations. And to a greater extent, you'll start to know their stories. You'll get to know how the community has responded to your church and other churches in the past. You'll get to understand why certain mission projects may not have worked to some extent because the community hadn't had an ownership of it. So it's really important for collaboration with the community to get a sense of what the dreams and prayers of that community are. And I think thirdly, for participation and engagement with the community, there may be significant people within that community who will be part of your work of mission. So for instance, in one mission I did in Scotland, it was a local man who owned some wedding marquees, who was able to provide those marquees for our mission. And we wouldn't have known that availability unless he was one of those talking partners and one of the fellow owners of that mission. Additionally, back in 2015, I remember in Scotland, there was More Than Gold, which was happening, and it was a focus on sport. And I intentionally started to listen to our local community. What does sport mean to our community? How can the churches connect locally in terms of sport? And interestingly, the local communities loved football. They loved, there was a number of gyms, and in a real sense, the communities knew this and the churches probably didn't. So essentially I became a sports ambassador for the churches to connect with where the churches were at and where the community was at. But I wouldn't have been able to do that unless I knew that the communities were passionate about sport. So it is really knowing their passions and their dreams. And I think fourthly, certainly because of social media, everybody is aware of what's happening in community to some extent. And we have to be able to show that awareness in our mission planning and our connection with the community.